Today's daf is daf Mem Hey. We're going to start where we left off yesterday on the bottom of Mem Daled Amud Beis, Ika Di Amri. And you'll see that about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines up from the bottom. Omer Ula K'tanishin is Kacha Shalol Das Avia Afilu Miun Einot Tzricha. So it doesn't matter whether the father discussed the zivrug beforehand or not, it's irrelevant. We're not choshish at all to Kiddushin. She doesn't need to get, and she doesn't even need miyun. And according to this Lishna, which is the Ika Di Amri, then Ula was not a statement that was connected to Rav and Shmuel, but rather it was a separate independent statement. Dvarim Nemru B'fnei Atzman. And it's possible that according to Ula, whether or not there was a shidduch, there was shiduchim, or there was not shiduchim, in all cases, there's no need for miyun. Masiv, Rav Kahana raises an objection from the first Mishnah, Masechet Yevamos. For Kulam, there are 15 arayas that are listed in that Mishnah, and the law is that if they fall for yibum to an erva, they pater up the tzara, and the tzaras tzara from yibum and chalitza and mesu. If, let's say, the erva died before the Baal died, or mianu, or it was a ketana and she was mema'enes in her Baal, or nizgashu, or she was divorced, or shenimtu islands, which means that the Kiddushin were Kiddushay tos, and they were batul mafreya. In all these cases, so say mutaros. So now Rav Kahana is going to specify his question. The kitcha man, one of the cases listed amongst the 15 arayas is bito, which means that the bas of the yavam was married to his brother, and either she died, or she was mama'enes, or she got a get, is then tzarasa muteres lavia. And Rav Kahana clarifies, kitcha man, who went ahead and was makadesh this bas to the uncle, to the father's brother. Ilem the kitchavia, if you're going to say her father was makadesh her, li achiv, then it's a problem because miyun, the miyun sagila, question mark, is it enough just to give miyun, get ma'alya by? We need an absolute get gomer doraisa, because the Kiddushin is minat Torah, because her father married her off. Elalav, we have to say by process of elimination, the kitcha e nafsha, that she was makadesh herself without her father's knowledge, uktani de boy miyun. And yet the Mishnah says that she needs miyun. So even though the father was not makadesh her, and a ketanishin is kad shalol das avia needs miyun, and that's against Ula, who says that even miyun she doesn't need. Who most of Rav Kahana raised this question and he answered this question. Kigon shenasa lo ma'isa yisoma v'chai ha'av. The case in the Mishnah in Yevamos is a case where this ketana did a ma'isa yisoma v'chai ha'av. In other words, she did a ma'isa as if she were yisoma. And even though her father's still alive, like for example, if, let's say, her father married her off to someone, and then he died, she became an almana, or he gave her a get, she became a grusha, and she's still a ketana. But once she was nises, then she leaves the rishus of her father, and she has the din of yisoma, and she's in her own rishus. She has left the rishus of her father. She could be miskadesh bi'atzma, again midrabanan, because she's yisoma, even though it's chaya'av. And that's the case, the scenario in which the Mishnah addresses, that if after the death of her first husband, she went ahead and she received Kiddushin to the brother of her father, what we call her uncle, then when she wants to come out of this marriage, she needs miyun. And it's enough that she gets miyun. However, the Gemara is now going to raise another objection against Ula Masiv Rav Hemnuna based on a brisa. Ein a person is not allowed to sell his daughter, the Mochel Krovim, if there's no possibility of yud, of marrying this, of getting this marriage off the ground, because he marries her off, he sells her as an Ava to a Krova, to a Karov of his, and the Erva would remove the possibility of Tfisas Kiddushin. However, Mishum Rabbi Elazar Amru, Mochra Lekrovin. Even though this Karov could not marry her, you're allowed to sell her to a Karov. And now we start our daf for today, Memhei. Shavin, there's no debate between the Chacham and Rabbi Elazar, Shemochra, that the father could sell her Almana when she's an Almana, even to a Kohen Gadol. Even though a Kohen Gadol is not allowed to marry an Almana, and he won't be able to be miyayed her, but nevertheless, this is not even Chayvi Lavan. It's Chayvi Esed. Ubi Psula, Isha Psula Yikach. Now, a Kohen Gadol is not to marry an Almana. That's an Isur Lav. Almana Gush V'Chalov Zonas Elo Yikachu. And it doesn't matter whether it's an Almana Min Ha'erisim, Almana Min Ha'suin. She's Asura L'Kohen Gadol. But Almana Min Ha'suin is only Asura Olav, is Asura Olav in addition to the Lav in an essay. V'hu Isha B'Psula Yikach. And if she's a grusha or a chalutza, he could sell her lekoin hedjot. Now, even though a grusha and a chalutza are asuras lekoin hedjot, and the reason why these sales as an amma are valid and binding is because ein isuran shel elu el balav. We have reduced the isur down to a lav, and kiddushin tovsim b'chayvi lavin. Therefore, the Adon could theoretically have Kiddushin and create Ishas with them, even though it would be Bavera. So the Gemara asks the following kasha. It's going to be an objection to Ula. Hi al Marechi Dami Ilim the Kitcha via. Here it's a case where her father married her off, is Mimotzi Mazbinla. How can he possibly sell her when he already married her off? Well, ain't the Mocher is Pitol Shifchas Achar Ishas. Once he was Makadesh his daughter to somebody, then he forfeits his rights to sell her as an Omavriya, even if she becomes an Amor or a Grusha. Elalav the Kodesh I Nafsha. We have no choice but to assume that the scenario is that she accepted the Kiddushin Shalomidas Aviyah. And nevertheless, Kakari Le Almana. The Tana calls her an Almana. It means that her Kabbalah's Kiddushin was valid and she needs a get, or at least miyun. If not, then the Tana would not have called her an Almana. And this is against Ula, who holds that a Ketana Sheniskat Shalo Das Aviyah is Afilu miyun Ein Tzricha. Amar of Yitzchak. The Gemara wants to defend Ula. The truth is that if she was Makabelas Kiddushin on her own without Yediyas Aviyah, she doesn't need anything, not even miyun. There's no chashash at all, like Ula. But Hacha, here, the case in the Brisa, when the Brisa calls her, this Bas, an Almana, Mikidusha HaKodmin, is Bikidusha Yiri. So it means the father never really married off his daughter. And the principle of Ein Shifchus Achar Ishus doesn't apply in the case of Yud, because the father sold his daughter as a Shifcha, as an Omavriya once, and with that Mechira, she was Makadesh herself to the Adon himself. Or shall we say the Adon himself was Makadesh. When he dies, she becomes an Almana. And the Brisa comes to be Makadesh, that when the father comes to sell her a second time, even though she's an Almana and she cannot marry a Kohen Gadol, he can sell her. And why is that so? Which means that when the father received payment for the mechira of the Amma, that money was not given as kesef Kiddushin. That was purely Mo's mechira, to buy the shivcha, the Amavriya. Now, if the Adam now wants to Makadosh, he's going to have to give her another pruta in addition to the pruta that he gave to the father to purchase her as an Amma. So the father never received Kiddushin for her. And again, if you don't interpret it that way, then it's going to be difficult. How could the father sell her now? You know, the mocher is pitol shivchus acharish. So it must be that we're going according to Rabbi Yosef of Yehuda, and the original kesef mechira was only kesef mechira, and it was not kesef kiddush. So the father never accepted a masirali ishus. Therefore, he can still sell. Now, once Rav established that in the case of a katana, she has to get a get and miyun, Rav adds other dinim that are resultant. For example, let's say the Makadish died and the katana fell for Yibum in front of his brother, the late brother, of the late, and now he was Makadish her, Shalom Midas Aviyah. And now we get into a sugya called Achos Kaluta Asur Shem Yomru. Second. So again, if the Makadish died and she fell for Yibum, and now the Yavam was Makadish Shalom Midas Aviyah. So we have four possibilities, really. It could be that the father had consent to the first Kiddushin, but not to the second. It could be that he consented to the second and approved of that marriage, but not of the first. It could be that he consented to both marriages, or perhaps he wasn't in approval of either of the two Kiddushin. Itmar Meis, so after he was Makadish the Ketana Shalom Midas Aviyah, he died. V'naflo lifnei achiv liyibum. Amar Rav Huna Amar Rav. If the Yavam does Maimar, is Mama Enes Lama Moro v'ena Mama Enes Lazikaso. She needs to be Mamayin on the Maimar, meaning the Maimar causes that she needs Miyun, because she needs a get to be Mafkia, the Kiddushay Maimar. And therefore she always needs Miyun as well. And this is based on a sugya back on Daf Mem Daled Mem Beis, that kol get hanita l'ktana misofek matzrich osa l'mayim ito. She needs an additional miyun, and we had a long discussion as to why. Now, if he didn't do a maimar, enamema enes l'zika, so she doesn't need to be mamayan in him in order to be mafkir the zika. All she needs for a hetel shuk is chalitza. Kate said it. Also, a maimar, if the Yavam did a maimar, tzricha get, utzricha chalitza, utzricha mir. She needs number one to get, because we have to be choshesh that the father's approval validates the Kiddushin bin Torah. She needs chalitza, because if there's ishus, then there's nefila Yavam. Tzricha get, right? Tzricha min. Tzricha get shemen nisratza av v'kedushay sheni. Right, so maybe in the mimer of the sheni, the father gave his approval, and she's completely married to the sheni, and she can't be mutal l'shuk without a get. Tzricha chalitza, because shemen nisratza av v'kedushay rishon. And therefore, when the first husband died, and she fell now for yibum, she needs chalitza. Tzrichaf miyun. Why? Shem alone is ratzav lo b'kedusha rishon lo b'kedusha sheni. So neither of these two kedushin were chal, and really she doesn't need neither get nor chalitza according to that side. But when the spectators hear about this, that she received a get from the sheni, they're not going to say that it was a get machmas suffix. They're going to assume that she was his complete wife. Ishta Gemura. And therefore, the Kiddush Lachosa, Yomru She'en Kiddushin Tosa Bachosa. We're going to say that there's no need for a get because there's no Tvis Kiddushin, she's Achos Gushasa. And therefore, they required Miyun to notify everyone that the get is not a get, it's only Misafek. So that they won't be Mater Achosa Lo get. Lo Asav Maimar. If the oven didn't do a mimer, then she needs chalitza to mata herself a shul. My amrit, maybe you'll argue that tiboy nami miyun, that we're going to require miyun also in addition to chalitza. And that's based on the fact that here also we have to be choshesh because achos chalutza is asura, even on the cholates. Shem yomru ein kiddushin tovsin ba'chosa. There's no tefis kiddushin for the cholates in her sister, and we're not going to be choshesh at all. Hakol yodim shachos chalutzasa midrabanan, and therefore kiddushin tovsid ba minat Torah. So no one's going to come to be mater achosa without a get. The Amrish Lakish kan shana Rebbe achos grusha midaraisa achos chalutza midirei. So let's go on. Hani Beitrei Davi Kashasu Chamra. They were drinking some sort of yayin. Tusei Tzipim Para underneath a tree called a tzaptufa tree, like an arava tree in Bono. Shakal Chad Minayu Kasa the Chamra. So one picked up the kos yayin and he gave it to his friend. Omar Mikad Shali Bratech Lebrin, is your daughter Mekudeshes to my son with this kos yayin? Omar Avina Filu Mandi Omar. Even according to Rav and Shmuel, hold the Ketanish in his Kadsha Shalom Dasavir Tzricha get me Sofim Shubachashin Shemin Isratza Av. And here on Daf Mem Hayim and Beis, Shemin Isratza Ben Lo Amrina. Right, the Ben is going to check out his Nesuin, his Makbid, doesn't get married to anyone. So there's no chashash that he was Misratza.